In this next tutorial, we're going to address making this chair. So the legs and the arms here, you can see are nothing more than duplicates of the front legs. The front legs are duplicated back legs, deleting the top. We will start with one piece of geometry and then just populate our chair with the pieces we need. Now, if you recall, whenever we create something, in this instance we're going to be using the Revolve tool to make something a little fancier, we want to go to one of our orthographic views. And because it's going to be vertical geometry, I want to be either in the front or in the side. I'm going to hold down the space bar, create, CV curve tool. I'm going to the curve tool and I'm going to go to the attributes to make sure that it is in fact set for 2. Once I'm sure of that, I'll click that out. And I'm going to start my shape as closely to the y-axis as possible so that I can get that spindle shape. If I don't get what I want initially and it's too thick, I can always edit afterwards. So it's really not that critical. So I'll begin to make some sort of a design here. And I'm going to hit return to set it. And then I will go to surfaces. And I'm going to go to Revolve, and I'm going to the attributes. And in my attributes, if you recall when we did our lamp, we chose polygons as the geometry we wanted to generate. So I'm going to do that. And once I've done that, I'll click on control points. Oops. Quads, control points. There we go. And I'll hit apply. Now, I'll leave this up. Because I can always go back. I can right-click in my viewport, hit Command-Z, and then go back and change it if I want. But I think that's pretty good. I'll go ahead and close that out. I'll save it. And there's that black geometry, right? And we know that we would go to lighting, two-sided lighting, to kind of eliminate that feature. I'll hit 3 on the keyboard, just get an idea what it's going to look like when we run this smooth. So you can see that's going to look pretty decent. I'm going to center the pivot on my geometry. And I'm going to drag this to the left so I'm looking at the path that generated this piece of geometry. Now I think I'll go in and edit a bit, so I'll right-click, go to Control Vertex. Maybe this is a little clunky down here, so perhaps I'll edit that and squeeze these vertices a bit. Now I have the smooth on, the soft select on. I don't want that, so I'll hit B on the keyboard and it returns it to the standard editing mode. I guess I'll go in here, grab these a little bit, maybe taper that a little bit more, and I'll go back to my object mode. All right, so there's my geometry. I'm going to save it. I'll hit continue. And if we go to the perspective view and look at the sample I have here, you'll see there's a bit of a bend in this. So I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and hit the soft select on this and just give it a bit of a soft arc there. So I've changed my view to my perspective and my geometry is black in that, so I'll go to two-sided. Now I'm going to right-click, choose vertex, and then I'm going to double-click on my move tool in my toolbar and access the soft select. So my choice is to click on the soft select box or hit B. Now, I think what I'll do is I'll just randomly grab this series and I'll just pull that. I want to influence the top as well, so I've got a couple of options. I could bump up the fall-off radius, or I could start by grabbing 1 or 2 rows of these and moving them like so. So you can see there are many ways to kind of use this tool. Now I want the legs to bow out a little bit towards the back. So I'll grab the very base and I'll move that like so. And I'm just kind of going up the row here a bit to get a little bit of a difference in the direction that my geometry bends. Kind of like that. So go back to my object mode. And I'm going to hit 3 on the keyboard to kind of preview what the smooth the mesh smooth will do at the end of the process. So you may find that your computer's at home, depending on the power of your CPU, you may find it's easier to edit in the one on the keyboard, the actual geometry, because very often the proxy can be very demanding on the CPU, redrawing the content as you create it. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to send to the pivot, and I'll go to my front view, and I'm going to duplicate it, so I have two of these. So I'll hit Command D, and I'll just drag that out, give it a little space. I'm going to select these two now. I'm going to delete by type history. I'm going to go to my top view, do it that way, and I'm going to duplicate one of these pieces to fabricate the front legs, the shorter ones. I'll hit Command D, and I'll drag this, Command Z, let's deselect. There we go. I'm going to put that right about there for now. And then I'm going to go to my side view and try and determine where I should cut this off so I've got the shorter legs for the front. So I think probably right in this area is fine. So I'll go to lighting, two-sided lighting. I'm going to right-click on my geometry, and I'm going to choose face. Now I want to see clearly what I'm going to select here, so I'm going to go back to 1 on the keyboard, and I'm going to get B to get out of that soft select. Now I'll click and drag with my move tool down to about here, and I'll hit delete, Command S to save, right click to go back to my object mode, and I'm going to center that pivot. Now I'd like that leg to be going the opposite direction. I don't want it tilting to the right, I'd rather it tilt to the left. So I'll go to my channels window. In my channels window on my y-axis, I'm going to rotate that 180 degrees. Now I've got the leg pretty much where I want it to be there. Now I'm kind of using the previous chair here as a reference. I want the, well actually I'm going to leave that like that. That's pretty good. All right, so I'm going to hit continue. And I'll go to my perspective view. So now what I want to do is duplicate that and put that on the dupe for the front leg in position as well. So let's go to our front to do that. I'll hit Command D. I'll click and drag that and line it up with its respective back leg. And I'll hit Command S to save. And I'll select both of those new legs. Click on Delete by Type History. Now, making the cushions is the same process we just used for our easy chair. So I'm going to stop the tutorial here, and I'll return when I have the cushions I want, and I'll leave it to you to create those cushions and have them kind of in place by the time we get back to this. All right, so while we were away, I went in and made the cushions based on the cushions for our easy chair, same polygons, same soft select. And I also took the opportunity to duplicate this leg, scale it down, and put it in position where you'd find these chair supports. And you can see I also duplicated that and put it on this side. So that's something you'll want to do as well. Now we're going to do the arms of the chair. So what we'll do is, once again, repopulate or recirculate, excuse me, that same model. So I'm going to duplicate it, and I'll put it up above the chair, start to put it into position, and I'm going to scale it. Now, I want to scale it with the base of this piece close to the cushion. So I'm going to hold down D on the keyboard and drag the y-axis down to the base of that new geometry, so that when I use my scale tool by hitting R, it stays pretty much in position where I'd like it to be when I kind of get what I want here. So I think I want this to probably be down on the base like so. Maybe I'll pull it out a bit. And that looks pretty decent. Once I have what I want, I'm going to go to the front view, and I'll hit Command D, and I'll drag that duplicate over to the other side of the chair. Once again, Command S to save. I'll Shift select what I previously made because I've edited. I want to click on Delete by Type History. Now we're going to go ahead and make those arms, and you've done this already. This is the same as the way we generated the cushions, as well as the spindle legs. I'm going to start out with polygon cube. So I'll go to Create, Polygon Primitives, Cube. I'm going to drag the footprint of kind of what I would like to have here. Give it a little thickness. What I'll do is, before I add the poly faces to it that I intend to use, I'll put it close to where it's going to be when it's done. Now it's a little wide, so I'll take the opportunity to get the length a little bit better. And you're doing this by just from memory and your imagination, so it's not too critical for this part of our tutorial. I'm going to go over to my channels window now with my geometry selected, and I'm going to scroll down to that Inputs tab again. And if I don't see any sort of numerical values here, I would click on the geometry and we'd kind of wake that up, and then click on the word polycube as well. All right, so once again, I guess I'll make this 4. Hit Command S to save, and continue. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to Vertex. I'm going to hit B on the keyboard, and I'm going to start to select my geometry and kind of edit it the way I would like it to be. Now you'll notice in the sample it tapers back here, so while I've got this kind of selected, I'll get my scale tool and I'll just go in and scale that so I get that taper that I'm looking for. It's still a little thick, but I can go ahead collectively flatten out that whole piece when I'm in my object mode. So I think what I'll do is just kind of jump to this point. I'm just picking random areas here to edit. That looks kind of nice. If I didn't like what I was doing there, I could always go into my soft select and either bump up the fall off radius or reduce it depending on what my needs are. I'll close that out. Command S to save. I'm going to hit 3 on the keyboard to preview that in the proxy smooth. I'll go back to my object mode, select, hit W, and I'll just move that into position. Probably going to be about that length, and I think I'll scale it a bit, put that into position. So the last step would be to duplicate this. Now, down the line we're going to find out that we can mirror images, but it's not so critical here because it's pretty symmetrical. So what I can do is hit Command D to duplicate, and then I can go over and I can rotate on my Z-axis 180, and that will give me essentially the mirror position of this piece of geometry. I'll get my Move tool, jump to my top view, and I'll drag that roughly into position, back to my perspective to check it out. All right, I'll hit Command S to save. Once again, I'll Shift select that newly made geometry, click on Delete by Type History.